Hi, all. Thank you very much for joining us. As you all know, recently on October 13th, I was falsely accused of trying to assassinate former president or current president Donald Trump. Glad to say current president. I'm so used to saying former president, but current president Donald Trump or incoming president Donald Trump. Now, what you all might not know is that this was the second false accusation that threatened to destroy my life. One of the reasons that I do what I do with the America Happens Network and exposing corruption and doing things like calling out the bar, calling out our judicial societies is because of a prior experience I had with false accusations, with destructive things being done upon my life. And some of you might know about this, a lot of you don't. It was when my children were kidnapped and trafficked out of Toronto, Canada, where I was there temporarily producing a TV show that was a USA-Canada co-production. And after I asked my wife at the time for a divorce, she then went on to kidnap and traffic the children. And frankly, I haven't seen my kids for 7 years now. I haven't seen them properly for 9 years now because of the corruption that happened during what occurred in Canada, essentially. So this episode right here is with a gentleman named Jeffrey Potofsky that claimed to be an investigator, that claimed to be essentially a Roy Donovan fixer type that was supposed to fix all the crazy things that had happened in Canada, all the crazy, unlawful nonsense that had happened in Canada. And this interview was actually recorded prior to me being called the third potential assassin in what was international defamation and what thus far has already proven to be completely untrue. And so I find myself in a crazy situation in life, frankly, where twice in my life is attempted to be destroyed by corrupt individuals. First time as a visitor in Canada, being a full-time resident of California, I was a visitor in Canada doing a production there, and what led to essentially my children being kidnapped and trafficked out of the country to the United Kingdom. And because I tried to speak up about that, I was called a cyberbully. I was essentially, the Canadian government came after me to destroy my life. And now, 5 years after that, 6 years after that, we see what happened with the Sheriff Bianco and people within the US government trying to destroy my life. And you have to ask yourself, why do these bodies keep trying to destroy my life with lies, with obviously provable lies? Now, I'm not going to ramble on anymore. I'm going to actually have a piece after, or I'm going to have a segment after this episode where I try to bring this whole situation together. And first, watch this episode. You're going to learn a lot of things about me that you didn't know. And then there will be a postscript at the end of this episode, and please hear that out as well. I thank you. All right, welcome to the latest episode of Blood Money. Today we have a very special guest, Jeffrey Potofsky. Firstly, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
It's great to have you on the Blood Money podcast. So for the viewers out there, Jeffrey does something, the best way I could describe what Jeffrey does is the Roy Donovan show on Showtime. Jeffrey's a private investigator by profession. He's also a lawyer. But what he really does is problem solve. He makes the impossible possible. And in fact, Jeffrey's helping me on an issue that I will tell you about in just a moment once Jeffrey gets to speak a little bit about his work and tell us a little bit of background on what he does and, you know, how he learned what he does. So Jeffrey, the mic is yours. Tell us a little about your background and who you are.
Oh, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I will make one correction right off the bat. I am not a lawyer. My title is Esquire. It was something that was bestowed upon me by a baron from the south of France. He came to Montreal. He asked us to help him with a few problems that he was having. He had spent fortunes on somebody else, was not successful. So we took the endeavor to go ahead and give him a hand, and we accomplished everything, I'm proud to say. The only thing that we did not accomplish was somebody had spray painted his car, a Rolls Royce, with yellow spray paint, but so be it. That's the way it goes.
Okay.
The important stuff we got done.
So Esquire is therefore a title of nobility because it's a topic this comes up in our podcast a lot because we've heard that it is a title of nobility, basically Esquire, correct? Or
It is. It is.
okay,
I was sent a letter from the people who issue these titles asking if I wanted to become a sir because I
hmm
apparently qualify for that now. I don't bother. I'm very proud to have the title Esquire, and I maintain it. And I've had it for many, many years, so that's where I stay with it.
very cool, very cool. So, Jeffrey, you're helping me out on a specific situation, but before we get into my situation, which I look forward to deep diving into, could you tell us a little bit about, give us some examples of the sort of work that you've done? We've given this Roy Donovan analogy of figuring out how to figuring out how to fix what others might not find fixable. Tell us a little bit. Give us some examples. You don't have to give names because I know a lot of this stuff is done in confidence, but give us some examples that will highlight to the viewer why you are a very special individual.
Okay, so one of the things that we have done is we've had people come to us that were pleading innocent in the courts. The courts would have made the pre-assumption that they were guilty. We have one person in particular. He was accused of having started a fire inside a restaurant that he owned and burnt down the building. When the police came upon him and the firemen came upon him, he was asleep on a cot in the basement. He had 2 big jugs of gasoline beside his cot. They arrested him on the spot, figuring that they have him and that's the end of it. He walked into our office. He asked for help. Having had a brief discussion with him, I discovered he originated from Greece. So it would have been as simple as getting on a plane and going back to Greece, and his problems would have been gone. And I asked him why he didn't do it. And in front of his daughter, he turned to me and he said, because my daughter has to know that I'm innocent, that I do not do things like this.
Oh, wow.
So I was impressed. I believed him. Nobody else did, including my partner at the time. I spoke with the fire department, who told us that they had him dead to right. And the police told us the same thing. And yet I said, no way. This man could get on that plane and he can leave. Otherwise, he was facing hefty time in jail. So we went to bat for him. We charged him an upfront fee just to investigate what was going on and determine whether we were going to accept the case or not. He paid it willingly and without batting an eyelash. And I did the investigation, and the more I got into it, the more I felt that there was somebody else behind this.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, not only was he let go in court and found not guilty, but I had the culprit arrested, who was sitting in the courtroom watching the proceedings.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's quite dramatic.
So, yeah, we had another case where there was an airline, just so that you get a taste of what I do. They were having all kinds of issues with parts on their airplanes. This was a commercial airline. I slept inside the hangar for 6 months, videotaping everything that was going on. I landed up finding out that the head mechanic, one of the shop stewards, was taking pieces off the plane and selling them to a private company down the road. And he was replacing them with secondary pieces that have never been tested. It could have killed somebody.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with doing something of that nature is that you're fighting a union the whole way along.
Wow.
The union protects their people.
Wow.
So we go to bat for the underdog most of the time. The people that don't want to give up, the people that want to prove their innocence, the people that want to have justice maintained, so to speak. And thank God we've been, out of 100 times, 99 times we're successful.
Oh, wow. Wow. I mean, how does, it's not like you could study in college how to become a fixer, how to fix complex issues, how to get people that are not guilty, but have, been given some kind of guilty sentence to be proven that they're not guilty. I mean, these seem like very challenging things to do. How does one get started in this line of work? What is it that happened in your life that made you decide you're going to go down this pathway?
Okay, well, times are different now. So when I started out, I was 18 years old. I had taken my girlfriend to the airport. She was going away. And a gentleman that was working at the dry cleaners near my house was running through the airport with a gun in his hand. And I grabbed him and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Leave me alone, I'll be right back." He went and he arrested somebody. It turned out he was working at the dry cleaners as an undercover job, and that he was in charge of the airport security in Montreal.
Oh, wow.
I was young, I was impressionable, I needed a summer job. I asked him if I could work for him.
Oh, wow.
He sent me down. Yeah, he sent me down to the police. I got my what's called the firearms acquisition certificate. I got licensed right away, and I got taught on the job as to what I had to do for pre-boarding clearance. From the pre-boarding security, I really liked the job. I enjoyed it. I decided I wanted to be a private investigator. And I went, first I did strike control for a company that was doing strike control in Ontario for a couple of weeks. And then I went back to Montreal. I joined a private investigation outfit called Blackwell Investigation, who decided to take me under their wings and train me. And they trained me as a store detective. They trained me to do investigations. They trained me to do bodyguarding. I literally did bodyguarding for any and every celebrity that came in and out of Montreal. I did it for the Saudi prince at one time. That was exciting.
Wow.
Yeah. I had never seen so much money in my life, but there he was with everything. Wow. And I got to experience what it was to participate in all types of businesses as a result of doing the private investigation, because you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. One day you're working in a t-shirt factory trying to find out how they're knocking off the t-shirts. The next day you're working in a pinball factory to see exactly who's stealing the money out of the pinball machines.
Wow.
So you gain knowledge into everything. From there, I went to work with some of the federal authorities in Canada and some of the federal authorities in the US of A. I learned quite a bit over there. They asked me to join the police force. I said no, I don't believe in working for the police force for my own reasons. I was having a lot of fun doing what I did. Mm-hmm. Then, as we progressed, I had a gentleman that I met who was a specialist in solvency reports. Not having much of a background in finance other than a BCom from the university, I wanted to learn how to do a solvency report. And he took me under his wing and he taught me how to do solvency reports, how to track down people's assets, especially people that are going divorced and the gentlemen that want to hide their assets, usually from their wives. He taught me how to do skip tracing, so that was locating somebody who did not want to be found so that they could not be served with a judgment or a subpoena or whatever it may be. And I found that exciting. I found it invigorating. I also saw the writing on the wall when it came to doing investigations, and you don't have to do too much more than just sit behind a desk with a good, strong computer nowadays in order to locate somebody or know what their habits are. So solvency reports proved to be very interesting. It also gave me a chance to get to know the world, because you have to travel the world. You've got to be able to blend in wherever you are in order to get the information that you require. We had a lady that called our radio show in Montreal, just to give you an example. And she told us that her husband had passed away, and she was sitting at a desk with her next door neighbor. And she said her next door neighbor said to her, "Whatever happened to all of those houses and land that your husband owned in the United States?" She knew nothing about it.
Oh, wow.
And so I landed up going to spend 2 weeks in Florida, and I came back with $10 million worth of land that was now put into her name because the lawyer in Florida that represented her husband decided to keep it for himself.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, we had him arrested, and we gave her back what was rightfully hers.
Wow. Amazing.
We also do resourcing. So what does resourcing mean? A lot of different things. We look for money for people who are building businesses and they're not, for whatever reason, they're not entitled to go through customary channels to be able to get the money they require. We have one person in Nova Scotia who has a brake factory. He wasn't able to get the materials that he needed, and he was on the verge of bankruptcy because of it. We were able to locate those materials for him, and he's flourishing today, thank God. We do all types of resourcing. We have people who come to us and say their child or their spouse needs a kidney transplant. Can we help locate a kidney for them? And we go to bat for them, and we give them all the information that we gather. Most of the time, it's very gratifying work. When it's not, it's because we weren't either able to get something fast enough or there was just none to be had. And that can break your heart. So I've gotten a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. And having said this, today I'm retired. I do consulting, which means that I put the teams together to go out there and do what has to be done in order to satisfy the client. It's also very enjoyable work, but it takes a long time to get to where you're going. You're working with people you don't know.
I was asking, and you're located in Canada, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
I'm in Toronto.
Awesome. Do you want to, was there more that you wanted to say about your background before we hop on to my specific case that you're helping out with?
No, it's just as you were asking, what was my background? My background really is extensive in as much as that I own quite a few businesses, only because I was able to experience what it was to be in each of the businesses that I own. And when I saw that they were going to prosper and they were good, viable businesses, I bought into them. And so my background has supplied me a lot of opportunity, and I'm very thankful for that.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. And so let's get into the situation that we're currently facing. I mean, before I describe too much about what I've been going through, do you want to talk a little bit about my case and what you know about it?
Okay. Essentially, what we have here is a fight for custody. You've got a very greedy family, and greedy not so much in monetary terms, but for the child, or the children in this case, who decided that the father has no rights. We don't like the father. We're going to take the kids. We're going to raise the kids the way that we want to raise them. We're going to form a family with another man that the spouse decided to bring into her life. And we're going to do so no matter what. So what does that mean? That means that in your case, your ex-wife decided that she was going to play judge and executor, and she was going to pick the kids up in Canada, take the kids from Canada over to the UK, and she was going to build a life for herself and the kids over there. A lot of wrong has been done because of this, because she decided she was going to abscond with a lot of money that she was able to get her hands on prior to having actually left Canada. She decided in her own mind that it was best for the kids to be taken away from their father. Parental alienation never even figured into her mind, and I'll get to that a little bit later. She's a lady that has a very strong family behind her. She's got a family that's they've been afforded quite a bit of wealth, and this family has decided that they're going to spend whatever it's going to take, and they're going to buy off whoever they have to buy off in order to win custody of the children. What she has not figured out, and probably hasn't still, is that justice is going to prevail. What does that mean? Well, that means that we're going to take all the wrong that has occurred and we're going to bring it to the courts. We're going to make sure that the courts know how she has acted, how the people around her have acted, how there has been a lot of fraud involved in this case, how there has been money laundering involved in this case, how the kids have faced parental alienation without her having thought twice about it. So in other words, as long as she got what she wanted, it didn't matter what her kids wanted or what was best for her kids. It's as long as she profits from it. Story's about to come to an end. That's not going to be. We're going to go to the UK. We're going to present our facts. We've already presented a few facts to the courts, and we're asking for them to look into it. What is going to come from this? Well, Because we're up against a law firm that's got quite a reputation in the UK, it's not going to be an easy fight. Having said that, we've got to make sure it's going to be a little bit easier than what they intended for it to be. And how are we going to go about that? We've gathered a lot of evidence, and these lawyers are governed by an association in the UK. The association's already been alerted that we'll be giving them the evidence as we deem necessary, so that they can go after the lawyer, possibly even the whole law firm, and reprimand them and do what must be done. That's number one. Number two, the children each seem to have a lawyer. The lawyer's first responsibility, whether it's the parental lawyer or the children's lawyer or anybody's lawyer that's involved in this case, is the children. There has not been one lawyer, not one reflection of anybody actually caring for the children. This is going to be pointed out to anybody and everybody who can do something about it. As I said, the children come first, and nobody seemed to take that into consideration. You then have a bunch of social workers or psychologists social workers posing as psychologists, which they do, and we found out otherwise. This is going to be brought to the Association of Psychologists, and it's going to be pointed out that these people cannot write reports calling themselves one thing when they actually only have degrees saying that there's something else. So we're going to put the battle together. We have other things that I cannot mention, but we have other aspects of law that will be brought forth. And we are going to teach these people that the kids' lives have to be maintained and have to be stabilized, and that they cannot be taken away from their parents, and they cannot be taken away from their grandparents. There's a Dr. Guidabaldi, who we checked into in the United States. He's out of Boston, Massachusetts. Dr. Guidabaldi is one of the foremost psychologists when it comes to parental alienation. He's got writings that we're just waiting for them to send to us, which shows that the paternal grandparents are more important than the maternal grandparents. And this is something that the general public would tell you exists, but otherwise. So in other words, people believe that it's always the maternal grandparents that play a bigger part in the children's lives than the paternal ones. And that's a fallacy. Wow. So we will be presenting that. We have asked him if he would come to Boston. I've come to the UK from Boston. He has not responded to us as of yet, but the request only went in a short time ago. So we're hoping that he's going to get back to us. I have yet to speak to the man. I've only read his writings, and I cannot wait to present them. There are forensic psychologists that we spoke with out of Montreal who are world-renowned. These forensic psychologists also have stipulated that after having reviewed the file, there is nothing in there to indicate that the children's best interests were looked upon. All of this will be presented to the courts. Wow. We then have a father, in this case yourself, who has spent hordes of money trying to capture your children, trying to make their lives better, trying to teach them who they are, how they should act throughout their lifetime. You have been definitely a noble person in their lives. The problem is that the minute that you walk away, we happen to know for a fact, the family turns against you, and they badmouth you and talk really horrendous about you and your parents. This is going to be corrected. This is something that is not going to go on. It also should be noted that we were told by the psychologists that when people do this, they talk really bad about their ex-spouses, the other parental authority. It usually works against them later in life. The kids turn against their custodial parent and realize the custodial parent was feeding them garbage. And this is something that we hope to point out at the trial in the UK. So we're doing what we have to. The psychologists are on board. The lawyers are on board. We've had investigators doing a lot of surveillance, a lot of following, a lot of digging into corporations the family owns. We have gathered information. We're still gathering a lot of information. And we've been fortunate because some of the work that we've asked to be done for us, or in this case for you, it's come to us free of charge. And people feel that this has got to be corrected. This has got to be looked into. It concerns 2 children, and they do not want this to exist. So we will see where this goes as we're heading to the UK shortly.
You know, if somebody does a search for my name online, obviously, if they just search Vem Miller, they find, a lot of things about podcasts, media, that sort of thing. If they search for my full birth name, which is Vem Miller Yanofkin, then they find a lot of horrible things about the Canadian government or Canadian judges saying that I'm a cyber bully, saying that there was a permanent restraining order put upon me, saying that I apparently told my ex-wife that I was going to kill the children, and a lot of horrible things that have been published, which have been mimicked across, dozens, potentially hundreds of web pages, all started by this judgment in Canada in 2019. Do you have any comments about that topic?
I do. Number one, I'd like to know how this got on to social media. I'd like to know how this got into records, because your case concerns 2 minor children. And the law specifically says that if you can track the children by using something of the parents, in this case, your reputation, your name, your trials and tribulations, you cannot publish this. So I have that question. The second question I have is, who put this there? Who went looking for it so that it would appear there? We've yet to find that out. I don't know if we'll ever find that out. Social media is a terrible thing nowadays. You could put whatever you want on it and people can dispute it all they want, but it never disappears. And this is a problem. So we've got to do a lot of digging. Yes, it's ruined your reputation. And should we find who's responsible for it, they will pay. We will sue them. Defamation of character, slander, whatever be it. And we will go after them. And we hope to be able to present all of this to your children so that they see who their father really is and how their father has stood up and fought for them all these years. They have nothing but to be proud of in their father. And it's not because I'm on your podcast. I would tell any father the same thing. If you fight for your children, if you lose everything you have in life, you've done the right thing, because this is your children. And you know that you will gain back everything that you lost plus more. It takes time. It hurts. It's a devastating experience to go through. We know lots of fathers, the majority of fathers who have gone through it. It's got to be stopped. And damaging somebody on social media damages not only their reputation, but their chance for moving forward, for advancing in life. So yeah, I have a lot to say about it, but now's not the time. We've got to wait until we get in front of a judge and a court. And we will go from there.
I mean, what do you think happened here, though, Jeffrey? Because this is such an unusual situation. And if I could give a summary to the viewers, this is probably going to be released far after when it's recorded. We're actually recording this on May 27. I was looking at the clock up here of 2024. You're probably going to see this a lot later once some of the things that Jeffrey's talking about have come to fruition, right? But the status quo thus far is that essentially, my children, and tell me, Jeffrey, if anything I say is misspeaking, correct me if I've made any mistakes here, but my children were kidnapped from Canada while I was briefly there. I was raised in Los Angeles. My business has always been in California. I'm in film and television production since I was a kid, and I happened to be in Canada for a brief amount of time. That's where my children were kidnapped by my ex-wife right after I asked for a divorce, and that's really what started this 8 years of just insanity, frankly, and in fighting for my children, as Jeffrey's saying, I've never stopped fighting for my children. These attacks kept coming on to me, and by profession, I'm as anybody watching the America Happens Network right now knows, just on an America Happens Network alone, there's 600 pieces of content, a lot of documentaries, a lot of exposés. Basically, it's very clear for anybody searching Vem Miller that one of the things I've done in my career consistently is do documentaries, exposés, dating dating back to the mid 90s, by the way, dating back to when I was a kid, right? But now you look online and it says, Vem's a cyberbully, and, essentially saying that my work in videos, documentaries is some form of cyberbullying, because one of the things that I did when this travesty started going down is I actually started making content about the travesty, about particular judges that I felt were corrupt, Judge Akbarali and Judge Christensen of Canada, that really started this snowball effect that we are here with 8 years later, in terms of me not seeing the kids properly for the last 8 years, the children being alienated, the children being abused, my parents being alienated, our last name being grossly defamed online. So tell me, Jeffrey, what do you think about all of this stuff that's happened and why it happened?
Why it happened is because you lost sight of what the prize was. So what does that mean? That means that all along your efforts should have been geared towards fighting for the children. Unfortunately, it's almost like a bailiff. A bailiff comes to serve you papers, you get hot at the bailiff. But the truth of the matter is the bailiff is nothing more than a glorified courier. Why fight with the bailiff? It's the guy who wrote the papers, the guy who filed the suit, the guy who's accusing you of something that you have the beef with. Mm-hmm. In this case, the judges, some of the judges aggravated you, and you would fight with the judges. You lost sight of what the prize was. You had to continuously fight for the children, not against the judge, not against the prosecutors, not against the attorneys, but fight to get the children. And this, unfortunately, I see is still happening from time to time today. We're going to go after all of these people. We're going to make sure that they have to pay any damages the court deems necessary. And we're going to counter some of the judgments of the people who already obtained them against you. If it's possible, it may be over the time limit in certain instances. But no matter what, we could always institute a new suit against them. The people want to ruin you. And given the opportunity, they're going to do it. Especially when it comes to lawyers and judges, prosecutors. They know the law. They know how they can press, how far they can press. They know where they can go with this. And chances are when you get into court, no matter what you want to believe, there's always nepotism. Okay? They're going to win their case against you. Because the guy who's sitting behind the bench, or the woman who's sitting behind the bench, is a friend of theirs, is a schoolmate of theirs, is a relative of theirs. Something. They've all been in this profession a long time. They know one another. They talk to one another. And it's hard for one friend to turn against another friend. So a few mistakes were made in that regard. Putting it online, that's a whole different story. The stuff that is in the public domain, it's allowed to go online. But as I said, it cannot point towards the children. And a lot of what I read points towards the children. So I've got questions about that. This is why it happens. This is where it's going. Right now, the best thing for us to do is to fight for the children, fight for their rights, fight for their well-being, and we're going to win it. Once we win that, everybody else is going to fall because we're going to institute one suit after another, and there's going to be many of them, and these people are going to come to court. And unfortunately, when they come to court, they're not going to have any knowledge of the evidence that we're going to be bringing to court against them. Right? Because in their minds, this is not evidence. They're innocent.
Wow.
We have a surprise for them.
Wow. I mean, somebody like me that's been, and honestly, Jeffrey, they took their shot at me. And I don't know if, I don't know how I could put this in words, but me being alive, healthy, and in positive mental health, because I have been in really positive mental health for a very long time, being crushed by what was going on. I mean, that's not what they expected, that's not what they expected. But you're saying that there was clear-cut intent to pretty much carpet bomb my life here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, it makes them look like a hero. So, I mean, they went after somebody and they won. another notch in their belt. Okay. In the case of your ex-wife, they are able to get judgments against you. And so she sort of feels vindicated. She was the one in the right. Right? They went to war, they proceeded, and they think they won. But you know what? The war's not over. We'll see who wins.
Wow. Wow. All right. Big words, my man. Big words.
Yeah, it is. But I've been at this for over 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how they go. I don't have all that much experience when it comes to the UK. The United Kingdom is a Commonwealth country, so we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from Canada, we're very familiar with one another. And we're going to get what we want. It's just going to take time and patience. Simple as that. I would love to involve the United States somehow. I hope to bring that into play later on, much later on, actually. But right now, we have to make sure that the kids are being looked after properly and that they know at least some of the truth, if not all.
Wow. Wow. Amazing, Jeffrey. Amazing. Do you have any thoughts, before we wrap up, about Akbar Ali, Judge Akbar Ali per se? Do you have you've read some of the things that she did that instigated all this. Do you have any thoughts you want to share at all about her?
No, I want to reserve my thoughts. This is exactly what I was talking about. I don't want to attack the judges. I don't want to attack anybody. I want to make sure the children are safe and sound. Then we'll do a second show, and I'll gladly tell you what my thoughts were.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Jeffrey, this has been really amazing to have you on the Blood Money podcast. Really what you do is the heart and soul of what the Blood Money podcast is about. Every episode we're talking about topics of corruption, controversy, and seems as though this is the sort of thing that's been missing. I wish there was more of you out there that were actually fighting the righteous fight. That seems to be something that's grossly missing from our systems, isn't it?
You have to dig. There are quite a few people out there like myself, quite a few companies out there like myself. You just have to dig. And when you find them, they'll walk over dead bodies to make sure that you're in the right.
Wow. Do you have any words in terms of, and again, remember, this is going to be seen at a later time, any words particularly for my children, for my ex-wife, for my mother, for the maternal grandparents? Is there any words you'd like to share to any of these individuals, knowing that this is going to be seen at a later time?
For your mom and dad, yes. I can tell them that they've got to hang in a little bit more. They should have nothing to do with this whatsoever. They should have been seeing the children. They should have been enjoying the children's company, actually talking to the children about their experiences in life. I happen to know some of it. They would have been bona fide teachers for these children. The children would have gotten nothing bad from these people. They're lovely, lovely people, full of knowledge. So they just have to hang in a little bit, because we're going to bat for them very much so shortly. And we hope to turn this around. To talk to your ex-wife, to talk to her parents, shame on you. That's all I could say. Shame on you. You put your own interests ahead of the well-being of children. I don't have much respect for people like that. That's it. Anything further, we'll wait until the next show.
Amazing, Jeffrey. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on to the Blood Money podcast. For the viewers out there, this is going to be part of an ongoing series. We're going to be documenting exactly what happened, because as you all know, there's been people out there attacking me about being a cyberbully, using these Canadian judgment from the Canadian judgment from 2019 to say that I'm a bad guy. And so it's time that we explore this story. And when the time is right, we're going to be releasing a lot of content about this topic. And please do follow it. Thank you so much for showing up to the Blood Money podcast. Make sure you go to americahappens.com, insert your email address so you could stay subscribed to our network. And I will see you all on the next episode of Blood Money. All right, so here's the postscript to the episode that you've just seen, without a hat this time. So as you guys all heard, this Jeffrey Potofsky individual was very emphatic that there were crimes committed against myself, my children, my parents, and that a lot of this would be set straight. But unfortunately, just weeks after this interview was shot, we were frankly, after giving Jeffrey Potofsky a unusual amount of money, we were becoming concerned that not a shred of evidence that he says he had gathered was presented to us in any form whatsoever. And it very much started feeling like a scam. It felt like very much like what he was doing was a scam. And so I said, Jeffrey, I'm not going to give you another penny until you show us the evidence of all this work that you said that you had done. And we're talking to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars were given to this Jeffrey Potofsky. And this is when Jeffrey Potofsky turned against me. Fortunately, I recorded all of our conversations with Jeffrey Potofsky, and it's very clear that until the moment I said, Jeffrey, there's no more money until you start showing us actual evidence for all this stuff that you were supposed to have done that we paid you tens of thousands of dollars for. Then he turned against me, essentially started using the same kind of accusations that my ex-wife and mother-in-law, former mother-in-law, had said about me, that I am somehow a bad person because I'm a cyber bully, and essentially just completely turned against me, dropped the matter, didn't present us with one piece of evidence as to all this work that he has gone on the record and said he's done. And by the way, this is one of many recordings that I have of him. I have hours and hours of recordings with this Jeffrey Potofsky. And it's very clear that he is 100% in my corner until we stop paying him money. And all we did was ask him for evidence of the work that he's doing, and that's when he completely turned against us, dropped the case, and this is unfortunate. This is unfortunate because it shows you kind of the quality of people that we're often faced with in this world. People that lie to you, people that act a certain way just to get money, and then they drop the ball on you. So this is going to be an ongoing story. I'm going to be very vocal about both these instances, the false accusations that I am indeed somebody that would cause harm to anybody, much less a president who I adore, and the false accusations by my ex-wife. What you see here is that men are nothing but fodder. There is no law. It's not like the FBI thus far has investigated the kidnapping and trafficking of these American children, kids that were born and raised in Los Angeles. And thus far, I haven't seen them do anything about this Sheriff Chad Bianco, who basically tried to frame me in front of the entire world for a crime that I did not commit, nor even thought about committing, as the evidence shows. And for those that want to see the evidence, simply go to @NotVemMiller on X. Everything's already posted that shows that Sheriff Bianco lied 100% about everything he said about me, with the exception of my name and my birth date. And unfortunately, this is the second incident in my life, as you've just learned, of lying officials. And the through line to these stories is that there are no watchmen. There is nobody protecting the American citizens. They didn't protect me when these American children were kidnapped and trafficked, literally stolen. And they don't seem to be protecting me now when it's abundantly clear that Sheriff Bianco is a liar, somebody that abuses his privilege and position. So that's the unfortunate reality. And all I could do is expose this nonsense. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Blood Money. I will see you all on the next episode.